us. And what's interesting in what she writes is it poses the question between the individual and his milieu. That is to say, how do we relate to landscape? And I deplore, and I can say that openly, I deplore the fact that in landscape architecture for the last 3 decades, we've flattened landscape to a 2-dimensional piece of paper, and we've mapped the heck out of the planet, but we haven't really revealed its body at all. We've just flattened things.
Changes on the rest of the creek. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, I'm just saying it changes things. So there's been a lot of impact. And a little bit of it's been experimental as well, which means we don't really know what impact it's going to have on the creek.
Well, what sort of experiments?
Well, they sort of said, well, we should put a hardened area here. What do you think? Do you think that'd work? And we'd say, maybe. Could. And, you know, then we watch it, and some of that did work and some of it didn't. Some of it has eroded away and broken off and fallen into the creek, which causes more issues because nobody's going to go back in and clean that out. Could do things that we haven't thought of, or maybe they've thought of and they're putting them in, and we'll see how they go. Be good.
It's just going to take time.
Yeah, and watching and thinking and observing is really important. Watching what's happening. Doesn't mean you're going to have the answers to everything, but you never know. A few people get their heads together, you might just come up with a quirky idea that might work. And this is their idea of flood mitigating, is just to make it harden it like that.
Control.
To make the flow faster.
Yeah. Get it out of
Which doesn't seem very logical to me in a way. It just takes the flood from here to somewhere else.
The only other thing I can think is what happened is that somebody at some stage just dumped all this rock in.
And increase in water flow, and it just rushes down there, and you've got this great big, huge, I was going to say gutter, but it's more than that. It's like a big pipe, an open pipe, just boring through. When the water goes down through there, it just gouges out. It would have had a huge impact in many ways, and that would be flooding. Obviously, would be one, but also tampering with the creek, changing the course of the creek. You know, digging it out or dumping stuff in the creek.
Just like a rough time frame, do you reckon if we did everything right, say from this moment forward, when do you think?
We're human beings, we won't do everything right, but let's try and improve a lot in some cases. Got hit that because we're here for the long haul, we watch and we talk, and I always say we're the eyes, the ears and the mouth of the river, so we watch and listen and then we tell people what we think for the betterment of the environment. A lot of stuff happened here. A lot of big buildings were built. Those big igloos were built. Just down here there were some igloos, and down near the Archfield Aerodrome there were lots of big igloos, and we'd never seen anything like that before. It was just massive. And
Whenever I find places like this, it's like a lost paradise in a way, and you suddenly think, wow, it's, you know, from the sublime to the ridiculous. I mean, the insect life here is amazing, the bird life is amazing. I'm assuming there'll be mammal life here in the night time. It's just, yeah.
I'm not terribly worried about seeing, fields and paddocks full of grass and stuff like that, because at least it's natural.
People like it here, and they eat their lunch and stuff. And they're drawn to this, to do that. Why do they chuck rubbish? Why do they throw their lunch rubbish?
Where's the bin at?
Precisely. There's no bin, is there? But they don't take it away with them, But if they like it here, why do they? You know what I mean?
You reckon they like it here?
Why else would you come and eat your lunch here?
If you worked over here, if you're a truckie, where are you going to go for a smoko?
I think the pollution levels have probably risen, and we do water quality testing in Oxley Creek Catchment Association, OCA. We do regular testing, and the creek has failed for the last 5 years, so we get an F rating, which is fail.
You said the habitat's so important to wildlife.
Essential.
And then you also mentioned that the water quality's failed. Do you think that's impacted on the wildlife we actually get around this area?
Absolutely, yeah. I'm sure it has. There are some spots where you see a fish kill, which is a really terrible thing to see. What could it be? Well, it has to be the pollution in the creek. There's something that's caused that.
When do you think the creek would be fully rehabilitated if we, say, did some stuff right?
It's going to cost money to do that. I'm not hopeful that it'll happen. Wouldn't it be wonderful? Yes.
I read a rough number, $100 million over 20 years.
Sounds good, doesn't it? I've just become a grandmother a year and a half ago, and I think I would love Sophia to be able to walk in this creek and see all this beautiful natural habitat. I don't know whether that'll happen in her lifetime. I hope so.
This is just being messy. I mean, this is messy, but it's not messy. It's messy because it's weed infested. And therefore people don't treat it with any respect. And you can see that because of the crap that's dumped in. It's just rubbish.
Yeah.
People just dump it. People see places like this as being a dumping ground. And yet, look at it. Listen to the birds, to the insects. It's just amazing.
There is a gap between perception and reality, but there's something very, very special in the middle, in that gap.
Despite differences in our knowledge and our beliefs and our expectations, we feel like we're seeing the same thing as everybody else.
Whenever two people experience the same situation, it's not the same for them.
And these illusions lead to a really substantial problem. They lead us to think that everybody is seeing the same thing that we are, when in reality, two people looking at exactly the same world could be taking in different information at the same time.
The exact same experience can mean two totally different things to two different people, given those people's two different belief templates and two different ways of constructing meaning from experience.
And what they say is that we all experience the gap, because when we're born, we are born into a culture, to a series of cultural narratives, or master narratives.
Yet we cling to our own view and saying, he's wrong. Yeah, not me.
The difference between perception and between reality. If my perception is different from yours and I'm right, then you're wrong.
We are not made to perceive reality, if it is out there somewhere, perfectly. We are not made for that. We're not capable for this.
Driven past this area many times, I've never really thought. So I think the idea of awareness is not just telling people, but, you know, getting them in there. And it was just a matter of sharing it with people, you know. So I'm a great believer in taking people in and talking and sharing.
You can actually imagine what this could be.
You know, we can do it. Why can't? Why can't they just pay groups like us to do that? You know, instead of producing 10,000 free trees, plants a year, we could probably produce 100,000 if we had more funding. You know.
Considering this is an environment that's been devastated, not the right word, but you know what I mean. It's an incredibly important habitat. I think I've heard about 6 or 7 different bird species, and I just saw a redback fairy wren.
It is our default setting, hardwired into our boards at birth. Think about it. There is no experience you have had that you are not at the absolute center of. The world as you experience it is there in front of you or behind you, to the left or right of you, on your TV or your monitor, and so on.
You are only seeing the world through your individual perceptions, because that's all we're ever able to do. And when there's a constant reminder that all I'm doing is perceiving the world my way, not the real way, just my way, then I can have empathy for others. I still don't have access to reality because none of us ever do, but I'm more empathetic.
And being able truly to care about other people and to sacrifice for them over and over in myriad petty little unsexy ways every day.
You have to take into account the fact that your knowledge and your experiences and what you see are going to be different from those of the people in your audience.
Not only are we unable to properly perceive the world that is around us, we also project our own expectations out into this world.
And we are aware there's a difference between perception and between reality. It seems to suggest that we can have access at some point to reality.
Our own belief systems influence the world that we create in our head, changes the world around us. It's like a filter that you put over a photograph.
But most days, if you're aware enough to give yourself a choice, you can choose to look differently at this fact.
The way you think about the world, what is happening around you, has a profound influence on that world.
It means being conscious and aware enough to choose what you pay attention to and to choose how you construct meaning from experience.
Changing how we think about the world changes our world.
The only thing that's capital T true is that you get to decide how you're going to try to see it.
And ultimately, design is with people. So it's, again, our responsibility and our opportunity is...
I needed to get down to the right height, down to the right eye height, not plan from a helicopter point of view anymore.
So it's not just about design or no design, it's about the process and the public involvement in the process.
What it does is that it makes people participate directly as a part of the process.
Everyone is an expert at something, and there's an opportunity for all people to collaborate in a process to ultimately lead to its success.
It's all about the people, by the people, and for the people.
So I've loved living here. I always call Cooper's Plains the best kept secret on the south side. So don't tell anyone.
Only like 20 or so people are going to see this.
Oh.
It's weird, but fascinating. And actually, in a way, strangely beautiful.
It's collecting, so she must be collecting to take back to the nest. Why she didn't just go for my face, I don't know. But I just thought, she's not thinking, oh, you know, humans have trashed this environment. This is the environment she was born into, and this is what she knows as an environment to live in.
Come this way. Can you just stand there?
It's recording.
Oh, shit.
Experienced, I mean, it was the same situation, but we experienced it completely differently.
This rhetoric of narrative, and we then spin out our own personal stories through it.
Only by testing your knowledge can you see the world as it actually is.
It was also being able to look at a sort of more global milieu, more global whole around the individual.
Well, designers, we have a social responsibility to people. We have been entrusted with placemaking and community building and design. And so it's really important that we are thoughtful about that and remember what we're trying to do.
Maybe instead of making masterpieces, I should focus more on making pieces that fit together.
The really important kind of freedom involves attention and awareness and discipline.